ahead and get started just to be mindful of time. So, hello to you all and welcome to our Nash Cares Community Education Series, a panel discussion on Black mental health. My name is Robin Wagner and my pronouns are she, her. I am tonight's moderator and the Bert Nash Center's Health and Workplace Equity Manager. Before we begin, there's just a few announcements that I'd like to make. I want to begin by thanking the University of Kansas Inclusive Excellence Department for hosting tonight's event, as well as Ameritrust Credit Union for their continued support for this panel series. I'd also like to thank each one of our panelists for sharing their personal experiences on tonight's topic and taking the time out of their busy schedules to be here tonight. This truly is just the beginning of this conversation, and we believe at the Bert Nash Center that diversity, equity, and inclusion is incredibly important. Before we begin the question portion of this event, I'd like to ask each one of our panelists to share their name, their pronouns, what organization they may be representing, and why they feel this topic is important. So, Asa, you want to kick us off?
Hi guys, my name is Asa Conte. My pronouns are she, her. I am on the KU women's soccer team, and mental health hits close to home for me because growing up, I grew up in a predominantly white area. I was always there was no representation around me, so I feel like my mental health kind of depleted because of that. And coming to KU, I feel like it's definitely more diverse, and just being able to surround myself around people who look like me have definitely helped me to reach out to mental health service providers just to strengthen my mental health.
I'm Lisa Cyrus, and my pronouns are she, her. I'm with the Bert Nash Community Mental Health Center, and mental health is important to me as a person because, health is wealth, right? And so I also think that specifically mental health within the Black community, we just need to have a conversation as we do in any other community.
I am Kylie Luckett, and I use she, her pronouns. I'm the Director of Mental Health for Lawrence Public Schools. And when it comes to mental health, I have a long family history of mental health and mental illness, and so it really touches home for me. And I went into the mental health field because I want to, specifically with our youngest learners, help them to be raised with strong skills. So maybe eventually in time they have the coping skills that we won't have some of the issues we have. You guys have a mic on there?
Hello. Hello, my name is Daniel Highshaw Jr. I play football here at KU. My pronouns are he, him, and mental health is important to me because it's just something I've been through. I seen my mom go through it. I seen my family members. I seen my teammates, and it's just something we don't really necessarily talk about until it's kind of too late. And so I just want people to be comfortable to talk about that with other people and not just in their own head, because you never really get over stuff in your own head until you really bring it out. So yeah, I just want people to be comfortable talking about mental health.
Hi, my name is Dr. Caleb Stevens. I run a private practice mental health group here called Identified. And my pronouns are he, him, his. I think that mental health is really important, especially in the Black community, because all the things that we don't talk about manifest into ways in which we are able to either navigate or not navigate the world. I think it feeds directly into our fears, and it also prohibits us from speaking what we are actually feeling. And so mental health is important to me because we deserve to be free.
Hi, my name is Nadu Izuebwunam. I am on the Kansas mental health team here. I work with KU athletes, and I also have my private practice on the side. Mental health is important because of what our first teammate was mentioning. Growing up where I did, I was often the only person that looked like me in classrooms, teams that I played on, etc. And I just want to make sure as a mental health therapist I'm providing a space to allow our athletes, regardless of where they come from, to feel included and to be themselves. Now you can go.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you to you all. I have a few questions for our panelists to get the conversation started, and then I'll open it up for audience member questions. But since the mic's over there, this question is for Daniel, Nadu, and Caleb. As Black men, do you feel as though there are different stigmas within the Black community regarding mental health? If so, what do you feel can be done to combat these stigmas?
I definitely feel like as Black men, it is something that's looked down upon to even talk about it, or like feel like you got problems going on in your head. Like I've had my own dad tell me that I don't got, like, I won't even know what mental health really is until I hit the real world, because I ain't paid a whole bunch of bills and had kids and stuff. And I'm like, so that means I ain't going through something because I'm in college right now. And it's just, a lot of them, I feel like in the Black community, a lot of them feel like if you're not working or if you're not doing something, then you're just kind of like being a bum, or if you're not taking care of your kids or anything, like you're just a deadbeat. But nobody actually finds the problem on to why is he acting like that? What made him leave his kids? What made them stop working and feel like they can't find a job? And a lot of it be depression for us, and we don't know how to get over that. So.
You didn't want to grab the mic? I think definitely, at the bare minimum, Black men, we run into the concepts and ideas of patriarchy and anti-Blackness, right? So we are told that we have to be tough, super tough. We can't talk about anything. We have to make sure that we are, if we're feeling things, that we're quiet about it, or we just tell one friend and then keep it moving and try to brush it off. And then we run into the reality of anti-Blackness and how racism interacts with our bodies and our brains and our ability or inability to be full people out in the world, because we're constantly under surveillance. And if you add more intersections, like if you're queer, if you're trans, if anything like that, if you're undocumented, or if you have a disability or something like that, you add even more layers. And so the stigmas are astoundingly present in our everyday life. We just don't oftentimes learn the language to be able to articulate what we're going through, and so we just abandon ourselves over and over and over again until it gets so bad that we can't ignore it anymore because other people can tell, right?
Yeah, I really think it's hard to follow up those answers. Being a Black man, there's times where you just feel that there's a stereotype, whether it's based on how you talk, if you're walking a certain area, feeling like you have to make, at times, like a noise so someone does not feel scared, etc. So when you're having to constantly feel like you can't be yourself, that's obviously going to affect how you feel when you look in the mirror, your self-identity, self-image, self-esteem. So if you don't have that outlet, obviously it could lead to more detrimental things. So mental health obviously is very important as a Black man to make sure that you have that support. I know for me, I had a friend text me randomly today asking like, hey, can you talk? And I was just ready to answer whatever it could have been. And it was just him wanting to FaceTime me, just saying hi because there was a friend in town that was visiting, one of our best friends. But at that moment, one of the reasons I felt comfortable is because him and I have had talks. I'm about to be a father in June for the first time, and then having a Black son, knowing that it's a boy, there's all these thoughts I have in my mind. So making sure that I, right away for him, know that there does not have to be this stigma and that he can feel very comfortable coming to me and his mom about anything. That's why it's super important.
I appreciate all of you. This next question is for Asa and Kylie. What do you feel are the most significant barriers to accessing mental health care for Black women?
I feel like one of the barriers is the overall stigma. For me, growing up, I always thought of like mental health as like a negative connotation, like, oh, if I'm seeking out help, like there's something wrong with me. And that's not always the case. It's always like, it could be like you're trying to like enhance your sport performance, or you just need someone to talk to. Like it was either just like not talked about because it was too serious of a topic, and like I just didn't want to come across as, oh, like there's something going on with me, like there's something wrong with me, there's something going on with me. Instead, I just kind of brushed it to the side because I'm like, I wanted everyone to think I was completely fine. And like I think another like barrier is the lack of representation. I feel like it's much easier to open up to someone who kind of looks like you and has maybe like similar experiences. So I feel like since there's like not as much of a representation of Black women in like those kind of services, I feel like it's hard to go seek out help, maybe out of like lack of feeling understood or like feeling heard.
I think that access has a lot to do with it. I live this work life with a lot of privilege. I have access, I know my resources. I think they're not out there enough at sometimes. And then there's this misconception that like I need to be suicidal in order to seek mental health support, or it needs to raise to this high level, this crisis before I get support. It's kind of the idea of, well, like as we think about wellness and like you stay well by taking care of yourself and being proactive. If we could apply that same thought to our mental health, I think it would be more discussed and it would be easier to access those mental health resources. I think as women, and especially women of color, you're also conditioned by society to be everything to everyone, and to not complain about it. And so, how do you balance that with, maybe I have children, or I have a partner, a job, and then just like making time for yourself, and then not feeling guilty that you took an hour to take care of your mental health.
Absolutely. This question's for Lisa and Caleb. How can we better integrate culturally relevant practices into mental health treatment for Black individuals?
So, how do we integrate culturally relevant practice? So, I guess how I would choose to answer that question, I mean, there are some ways to do that. However, I think the more important question for me is, do we want to? Because I think a lot of times we ask that question, how do we, and we get the input and we do nothing with it. So for me, it's about, are we ready? Do we want to? And if we do, I think we have enough research that we have done over the years. We have enough readily available input to do that work when we are ready to do that. So that's how I'm going to answer that question. It's are we ready? Do we want to do it? And if we do, then the resources and the input will be there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a really good answer. I also think that we should talk about who is funding it, who we're talking about the we is. And so if we have all these culturally competent practices, which I don't know what that means, what I will tell you is that oftentimes we try to make it so much more complex than it needs to be. We need to have people that look like us, people that understand or are willing to do research about the experiences that we have, and then we also need to have continuity. So we need to have multiple people that look like us, coalitions that are supported. And then we need to learn people's stories, right? So we need to learn their stories, and we need to be real with the things that they go through without them worrying about us calling the police or something like that. We need to understand that a lot of things that people are going to talk to you about are going to be, it's just going to be inundated with trauma, right? And so the reality is that if you're asking people to tell your story, you need to make sure and reflect back in ways that make them feel comfortable and heard and seen and believed. And also, you need to fund these things. Everybody always wants to say, how can we do these things, but you never give us the money to do these things. And so at the end of the day, if you want to be about it, you have to fund it. And it has to be for more than a month or a year. It needs to be forever, right? Because the need only grows more and more and more. And the people that fall through the cracks look more and more and more like us, right? And so I think that that's the thing, right? I think it's a really good question, but that is very bare minimum question. You have to actually follow through with the funding. We know how to talk to people. We know how to serve our people, but we need the money and the spaces and the privacy and the trust to be able to pour back into the people that look like us.
Absolutely. Daniel, Asa, and Adu, what kind of information or training is given to the athletes to recognize when they or someone else is in crises and needs help?
I think a lot of the things, like just for athletes, we kind of just had a mental health presentation to us, but a lot of things they did tell us was when we're starting to shun ourselves off from our teammates, or when it starts to seem like we don't care about the sport anymore, and that actually happened to me not too long ago. Like it was just, I was going through my everyday life just going to football, but I didn't really like it, but I love football so much, and I didn't know why I was not liking it. I was just going to do it because I'm here to do it. And I love it now. I'm starting to change my ways and just be grateful of everything been through in my life and be able to go through and come here and play football. But just things like that, just them walking around, not really talking to people much. Yeah, that.
Yeah, so when it comes to like team trainings or group trainings, we have, for example, yesterday we did QPR, which is question, persuade, and refer on suicide prevention, so that's one. Individually, there's a ton of skills that we help our clients cultivate, and it could be through trauma, so EMDR is one avenue that we've taken individually with clients. And then mental health first aid is another. And thankfully with our positions here, we can do it for our clients, but also those who work with our clients, so coaches, other staff, support staff, etc.
For my team, we would have our mental health provider come out to like one of our team meetings, and then she would educate us about like the different people that we could see. Like it didn't have to be specific to her, but other providers that maybe we connect with better, and then also other well-being things that like KU put on. And like for me, why I sought out like mental health help was just because I tore my ACL my freshman year, and so I was returning to play and I was hitting a mental block. Like I was so frustrated with myself. Like I wasn't feeling like myself inside and outside of soccer because I was letting my performance dictate my mood. And so for me, like I was like expecting me to finally see somebody and talk to somebody and like come up with like ways that I can cope with this feeling, and just like and that helped me a lot because I opened up, and then it like helped me gain confidence a lot more.
Thank you. I'm going to open it up for audience questions. Before I do, panelists, if you could hold the mics really close to your mouth just so we can be sure that everybody hears your awesome answers. But, oh goodness. Does anybody have any questions in the audience?
Don't be scared. Don't be scared. It's okay. I think I was expecting that.
Okay. Hi everyone, my name is Tanisha McEwen. So this question is for Daniel Hishaw and for any of the other males or anyone else out there. But one thing you said in your intro was having conversations with your dad, and with him maybe kind of downplaying like some of the things that you were going through because you're not in a full-time job or have kids or whatnot. How did that make you feel hearing those words?
Hearing those words actually kind of made me feel like I couldn't talk to my dad at first. But I'm the type of person, well, I know my dad is like real strong-headed, you know, and he has his ways that he grew up, and he thinks being in the working world is the hardest thing in life and all that. And even though he's had hard moments when he was young, he just doesn't really think about it as much. But it made me it made me kind of want to take a step back and like just forget the conversation. But that's not going to help anything. That's not going to help my dad understand where I'm coming from, regardless if he thinks I ain't been through anything or I haven't experienced more of the world. I still sat there and explained to him. And at first, he wasn't getting it at first, but then once we got to the end of the conversation and kind of like he started seeing where I was coming from, he did start to soften up a little bit and be like, you know what, you're right. Like, I'm kind of sorry for not checking up on you and asking you those type of questions more and being there for you. But we're still figuring things out.
I mean, to add to that, I commend Daniel a lot, because sometimes when you are trying to be understood, it's just the easier way, just, you know what, this person's not going to listen. I don't want to continue to make you understand me. But I think examples like that really prove that if you stay persistent and want to really get better outcomes, like someone understanding me more, at least opening up to what I have to say, can make a huge difference. And it's an ongoing thing too. A lot of these relationships and people that we may be disagreeing with aren't going to be, you know, turned around like that, but knowing that someone at least was able to listen to you, even because he loved you obviously too, it opened up hopefully for him to, and anybody, just to know like this person can be a part of my support system one day. It may take a minute, it may take a while, but continuing with the conversation definitely helps instead of just giving up.
I think that as black men, we have to remember that, you know, patriarchy is a hell of a drug too. As black men, we are specifically only relegated to being tough and strong and fast and things like that. And so emotions don't feed into there unless they are part of the achieving or body capitalism, being an athlete or achieving in school or things like that. And so, you know, the reality of being misunderstood when you're desperately trying to be understood is one of the most devastating things that you can experience, especially from parents, right? Or people that are supposed to keep us the safest, right? And so if our safety is warped in any way, then safety that we take outside of our home looks like that as well. And so then we have a warped way of loving, we have a warped way of receiving love, and we have a warped way of trying to navigate what is healthy or what is antiquated love, right? Things that we have grown out of, ways that used to be for survival that we don't need anymore. And so any interaction that we have when we are being told what we should feel feels bad, right? And being able to say, hey, that's actually not what I'm saying, and I need you to hear what I'm saying, otherwise I'm not interested in sharing my vulnerability with you, because it takes a lot to dig that up as men, because when we say it out in public, oftentimes we're told to be quiet, right, or that that's not real. And so when you think about that and then you add the layer of being black onto it, there's another layer that keeps us from being soft and vulnerable, right? Softness is the gateway to relationship building, and that's what I'm hearing and what I've experienced that we want. We just oftentimes don't know how to navigate that because these ways are passed down, right, from generation to generation. And so we need to be the ones that are like, it ends with us, because what I experience, I'm not going to pass that forward. And so with that comes the understanding that we have to develop language so that we can tell the truth about what's going on.
I am not a black man, but my father is, and one of the things that's helped me within that is realizing he's almost 70, and the way he was raised, these things were absolutely not talked about at all. He grew up very poor in the South, and recently we were talking, and I was like, well, Dad, how does that make you feel? And he literally could not come up with a feeling word. Like, he can talk around it, but it helped me to realize he does not have the skills, and it's no fault of his own, but he does not have the skills, the emotional intelligence to verbalize how he's feeling. And so with that, it gave me like a big sense of empathy, and it's like, it's not that he doesn't want to try to understand, he's just not been taught. Proud to say it's something that we have worked on, and he has been growing, and my mother passed away recently, and he's really been trying to, like, this is how I feel about it. And so I think it's also important to remember it may be how it was, or that might be an experience, but people still can grow and change when they're presented with a safe opportunity too.
So just to add to that, a lot of what I'm hearing is that process of change, right, and the start of change. So I'm a person who have raised and still is. I've got a 22-year-old male child, and for me, it's the kind of what Daniel was talking about. It's creating the space, even though it's uncomfortable, creating the space to hear. And I think we have an amazing thing within the Black community in that intergenerational relationships, and sometimes it's within the home, and that is a treasure, right? Because it's an opportunity for multiple generations to learn from each other. I've got a 18-year-old daughter as well, and so they constantly, like, I've grown, Even though I work in the mental health field, I have grown as a person because they have challenged me, right? When there's difficult conversations and my first reaction is to shut down because, again, I've been taught for in a lot of ways that we've already shared, you have to hold it together, you have to, move forward, you have to be strong and all of that stuff, but they challenge me, and then, so it's for me to then listen, give them permission, and take permission from them to learn and grow, and then influence the other generation previously, right, into creating that space so that we can listen to each other and we can speak to each other, right? And it's a process. It's something that has started. We've got a long ways to go, but it's a continual thing. So it's really good to hear of the process being started. And I think it's a treasure that we have.
I had a question for everybody. Because we sit in a space where we're talking about our perspectives and helping people understand how to best help us, right? Can anybody who's comfortable talk about kind of your perspective when it comes to people feeling like, Black folks are angry or combative or distant, and kind of really shining a light on what that is, where that comes from, and or if you feel more comfortable talking about how best to kind of move past that and still create levels of connection.
So I would kind of just, to address the first part of your question, I would kind of just say, like, with the people, like, stereotyping that Black people are angry and this and that, like life is hard for us. Like, for the most part, the system is typically against us. So it's very frustrating at going to, like, maybe work every single day and, like, doing all you can and working as hard as you can, but never, ever being on the same level as someone who doesn't look like you. So that is very frustrating and very angry. So I think people just need to honestly educate themselves about, like, what is going on systemically, because there's a lot of systemic racism, and just kind of empathize. Like, I know some people can't relate, but it's more of just, like, empathizing with the situation and understanding, like, this is where they're coming from and this is why they may be acting this way.
So I'm going to add to that in saying, with the beginning question, or to help, it's to ask the question why, like, or to get curious, why is somebody angry? Just as you would for anyone else, right? When somebody's expressing something, being able to maybe take yourself out of it and not personalize it, so to speak, but to ask the question. Be more curious about the why, instead of feeling like it's targeted towards you. So that's how I'm going to answer that.
I think that and along those lines, it's instead of what's wrong with you, what happened to you? What's happened to you that this is where you're at or how you feel you are? I think it's also, yeah, I'm angry. I've got a lot of stuff to be angry about, and that's completely valid. In the current time, in historical times, like, yeah, you're lucky I'm just angry, because if there were more, I'd be knocking down all the doors, but I'm not. So I just think kind of reframing when we think about that, and that's something that's really important to me, especially working within the school system, and having students of color not be identified more often than their white peers, not having them do the exact same thing and have different punishments. Intentionally looking at our suspension data and who are we suspending and why and how long, and then challenging those, like, unconscious biases that live within all of us, and just own them and make a system that will make it better.
I got a lot of thoughts on this, so I'm gonna try not to. My mind moving a lot, so I'm trying not to be on it too long. But, like, one of my first things I think about when I hear that is, like, the world is almost programmed to, like, see that in Black people, with everything we see, like in the media, like TV or TV shows in the news. Like, you either see a Black person being rich, driving some fancy car on the news or something, and they're out there in sports, you know, doing whatever's for their sports teams, or they're out there being angry. It's not a lot of in-between things the media really shows about black people. And my thing on it is just like with the media, a lot of people will watch videos, and it's even like on like your social media that you see every day. Like if you got Twitter or something and you start scrolling down your Twitter, like most of the stuff that you see on your Twitter is like things that is hateful towards another person for some people to laugh at. And that's being fed through, like, black people being fed through media like that. Like most of the time when it's a viral video about a black person, it's either they're angry or they just scored a bucket or like some touchdown or something. It's not them helping out their people most of the time. It's not them going to school talking to kids. But when you see white people, it's them being glorified for a lot of stuff they did for schools, or, you know, they donated to a whole bunch of people. Like Kevin Durant donated, because I'm from Oklahoma City, more Oklahoma. It's close to Oklahoma City. Kevin Durant donated to my junior high, and this other junior high was not in the news at all. But a couple people, when I had tornadoes in Oklahoma, I don't know if y'all heard about it, but I was in those big tornadoes when I was a kid. My brother and I had like people that I knew had died in schools and everything. But I told y'all my mind be moving. I just almost forgot what I was saying. But
People who donated to the tornado were shown on TV.
Oh man. But oh yeah, Kevin Durant. Like I said, somebody donated to our school. A white person donated to our school. I don't even know who the dude was. I can't really remember his name. He donated to our school. It's all over the media, and we're supposed to glorify him. But when Kevin Durant donated, it was like it was just a basketball player just donated all his money to us, and it's like a lot of times the world got to look at black people how they look at everybody else, just a normal person, not just seeing you a black person and trying to be glorified by funny things they do or bad things they do. It could be normal things they do that could get glorified. But
I love angry people, especially angry black people. I mean, period, right? Because at the end of, I know you just asked that question to antagonize me. I know you know that. But I think at the end of the day, anger is a surface level emotion, and right. So most of the people don't spend the time of asking these black people why they're angry, like was being iterated earlier. Because if you get into it, then what you realize is people are feeling put out, abandoned, invisible, all of those things. They feel super unsafe and stuff like that. And so, of course, I love an angry client, right? Because there are emotions that we can sift through. There is feedback that I'm getting from them that they're upset about things. And most of the time, I sit there in my sessions and I'm like, yep, yep, more of that, need more of that, right? Because you should be pissed. Right? You're experiencing terror, right, on a regular basis. Please be angry. Please keep feeling that. The thing that I'm worried about is like what you were talking about before, when you start to isolate and these kids don't have any, or adults, right, or me, we don't have any feelings about what we're going through, right? When you feel numb and things like that, that's when I start to worry about people. I love angry black people because that means that they're experiencing things and they are real time telling us what's happening. So I love that, right? I'm not fazed by that at all. That don't faze me, right? I've been told I was angry all my life, and nobody ever asked me why I was angry, and then took the time to navigate through that, right? It was just like, well, you need to stop because you're causing a scene, right? Well, let me cause a scene and then figure out why the scene started, because oftentimes it's a reaction to something that I experienced. Does that make sense in the back? Yeah, I know it does. You know?
Well, sorry, Chris, I can't add more to what they just shared. They said it perfectly. So.
Another question?
The lady in the turquoise.
I'll make it away. I'll come across.
I don't have a question, but more like a comment. I totally agree with Cal. Why not being angry? What is wrong with that? You should be angry. Look at the history. Read it. Look at the media. Look at what people say. It makes you angry. The problem is that we don't understand. We are all from one race. And that's a human race. No black or white. If you put the needle in every single finger of your hand, the blood is the same color. We have the same color. We have to understand. And you shouldn't separate yourself. What is wrong? You have the same right as the others. And you're going to go through the mental problems because that was all piled up throughout the history. And you have to have the answer for it. Sooner or later, we have to have the answer. And then the problems will be solved. Thank
Sir,
you.
I got a question for you. So when you say we're all together and, you know, we're all one thing, but we should be angry, like, what are you saying we should be angry about if we're all?
No, what I'm saying is, if you're angry, you have all the rights. Because of the history, because of all those things that have been piled out throughout the history. And it never stopped. We can, by words we can say it's a stop. It is not. It is not. I cannot feel what you feel, even though I'm brown and I'm an immigrant. But still, after 50 years, they still look at me differently. But I know I can be angry or I can solve the problem. But being angry by itself, there's nothing wrong with it. It makes us realize what our problems are and solve the problems. And we don't continue being angry forever and ever. That's what it is. Thank you.
Sorry, just kind of question, but I like a clarification. I think one of the things you said is when people see us as angry, that's an assumption that people are angry. So could you, sorry, the question what I heard him say is when people see us as angry. So I would like you all to speak to that versus speaking to we're angry. Because my face, the way I speak, at times people think I'm angry or aggressive because of what I've been told. I overstep my line. I do all these things. I'm assertive. A guy does this, that's a cool character. I did this, different. So could you speak to that? Because that's what I heard him say. He didn't say we were angry. He said when people assume or project us as being angry.
So are you saying, like, how should we respond when people assume that we're angry?
Right, when you're basically just living, because life is what it is. But because you spoke up or you defended something, someone is like, why are you talking that way? You're not being cool. You should be happy. You got this job. You should be happy about it. And you're like, no, I have better qualification than this person. Why can't I get the same K? Or, you know, or why am I sitting on the bench when I shoot 15 shots or caught all the balls? Why can't I be the person?
Well, going off of kind of what you're saying right there, like, you having better qualifications and all that, why haven't you got that? And I've been told personally myself on why I haven't gotten a certain level of a job is because I don't know how to play the game with people. And I think that's one of the biggest things in black communities that we have to stop telling our kids. I think that's in every community. I think we have to stop telling people, because playing the game is almost not just telling you to be fake around to the people around you. And that's not how you can take care of your mental health, because eventually that's going to boil over into your day-to-day life of you just playing the game. Because you playing the game is going to make you not like him every day, or her, whoever it is. It's going to make you not like them every day until you either blow up and get angry, or you talk about it with them. But you're probably going to talk about it with them in an angry way. So instead of playing the game with people in the real world, in the working world, whatever, like, just be able to have real conversations with people without taking offense. Like, being able to tell your side to somebody and hear their side in the same way. Like, you can't just want to be angry and say your side, and then once they respond, you're not listening to them. Like, we can't have blind rage as black people. Like, it's okay to be angry as black people, but we have to be able to control the anger and still hear the other side. Because just like they don't understand us, we don't understand them either in the way they thinking, or why do they think like that. You know, they could have had experience with a black person that made them feel like, that made them have that prejudice towards black people. It might not even been they was taught that way. So you talk to them and be like, yo, why you feel like that towards me? Or something like that. Or like, why are you looking at me in this type of way? Or why do you think I'm angry? And then if they don't want to talk about it with you, like, you can just let them know, like, I'm here to talk about it. Like, I have no vendetta towards you. Even though you can have a vendetta towards me, what's the point of you hating them? You already didn't hate them, but because they hate you, now you gotta hate them back. That's not the thing. So,
I think for me specifically as a woman, I would, if I'm not actually angry, I would be like, oh, you haven't seen angry. You'll know when I'm angry. This is not anger. That is the kind of sarcastic part of me. But I would say, what am I saying or doing right now that makes you believe that? Identify it for me. Oh, it's your tone. Okay, ask yourself, why do you think this tone is that way? Why are you interpreting my tone that way? Is it possible that there's another interpretation? Is it possible? And just go through that, because oftentimes, you know, maybe it was that you were acting a fool and you deserved a little sarcasm. Maybe I am tired. Maybe I'm just being assertive. As a society, we do not, specifically from women, like assertive, direct communication. And I think it's something that when if you pinpoint it and say, this is not angry, I'm not raising my voice, I am being direct, I'm being clear, I'm being concise. If that makes you feel some type of way, please go talk to somebody else about it.
Hi. I just wanted to say thank you guys for being vulnerable and sharing your experiences. I am actually in the master's program here at KU to become a counselor, so I wanted to know, like, do you have any advice for reaching the Black and brown community?
I would say, well, congratulations, first of all, okay. But second of all, I would say don't be afraid to bring who you are into the work that you do, right? I think that oftentimes we are wanting to be just a generalist counselor or a generalist social worker, things like that. But the passion that you bring should be what you do, right? And I think that it's incredibly valuable, the things that you have survived through, whether you have wanted to or not. But also, your specific experience is incredible, right? And you need to be able to show that to other people. Oftentimes in helping professions, what is taught is that we're supposed to be so boundaried that we're robots, right? That our clients don't know anything about us. But I'll be honest with you, that's not an effective way of building community and rapport, especially with non-white people, right? It just won't happen, right? I need my clients to know about me. I need clients to know that, oh yeah, this is a similar struggle. I've been there for that. And so I just want to say, bring you to it, right? I think that that's so valuable, and that's also not something that I experienced here when I was doing my master's at KU in social work. That was not encouraged. It was specifically told that boundaries are more important than anything else. And I just want to continue to reiterate, after being a therapist since 2014, that every day I'm able to connect with people because they're able to relate to me. And that's really important.
I want to make sure I heard your question correctly. So you're asking for advice on how to be more either integrated or accepted by the Black and brown community?
Like, how to reach the Black and brown community, like help them be more comfortable with their vulnerabilities, their experiences, and seeking mental health.
All right. Yeah, I think you said it really great. First of all, awesome that you're in the program. Excited to have you as another part of our team in the field. Like he was saying, just being yourself, it goes a long way. I think clients read authenticity more than sometimes we think. And sometimes it does help sharing your experiences, the ones at least that you're comfortable with, but at least if you know that it would help that client open up more to you, it's going to be super valuable. And I mean, the easy answer, to be honest, is just showing up. So if there's a community that you're wanting to work in more, showing your face. I know for me, being on psychologytoday.com, there's a lot of clients I've met with because they just see me and that's enough for them. So just knowing that there's someone out of the 1,000 searches that they've seen that looks different than everybody else but looks like them, honestly, that's like some of the best starts for most clients and communities. And then knowing wherever you end up, a lot of times you may only be one of a few. So sometimes that right there is enough to be like, okay, I want to know her. I want to meet with her. I like her. I don't even know her yet, but I want to know what I can work on with her and how she can help me live a better life.
I can add just one more thing. Also, don't be afraid to say, I want to work with Black, Brown, and Indigenous people. Right?
Yeah,
That's a big, okay, great. Yeah.
I think it's also, and this is across the spectrum, but going into those spaces, in many communities, the church is an integral part of the Black community. So how are we bringing that mental health into our churches? How are we bringing mental health into the barbershop? How are we bringing mental health into these areas and not making them some separate or divided thing? I think is really helpful. And also networking. Find other practitioners. If there's not a group that is practitioners of color where you're at, start one. Reach out to people because you can then create that and find your way. So.
Another question?
Once again, thank you guys for being here tonight. My question is for whoever would like to take it, and it's simply, what advice would you give a young professional or a student who has to assimilate into majority white spaces as it pertains to dealing with microaggressions and how to properly navigate those skills to deal with their mental health as well?
For me, so I'm on a predominantly white team. I'm on the soccer team, so there's only like 3 Black girls on the team. So for me, what I really prioritized was getting to know other people like outside of my sport that look like me, like surrounding myself by people that still look like me. So when I'm in that space, yes, like it is hard sometimes, but like when I leave that space, I leave it. Like I don't talk about it, and then I go back and I surround myself with people that have the same experiences as me, like look like me. Like that's honestly helped my mental health so much. Like just surrounding myself. Like that's it, just surrounding myself.
I would definitely agree with that, is when you're in a space that you are not, you're not the majority in that, finding that infinity space. And in the Black community, I think we've talked about it before, you have your faith base, you have family, you have your sports club. Just find your people to gain strength, to connect with, so that you can go through the other spaces already packed with that support.
I think it's also important to remember that it is not my job to teach white people. If they want to learn, if they want to grow, that is on them. I'm not going to sit here and talk about textured hair. I'm not going to sit here and educate you on why this is offensive or not offensive. I should be able to say, this is a problem, and then like, you go fix it. And being able to have the vulnerability to say that. But also like having a certain openness where I'm not going to do the work for you, but I am going to encourage and support you in doing the work.
Just to kind of add on to that, in a place where, like for instance, in my example, in my experience, I hold a place of leadership, and so being the only person of color in a leadership role, really on the team at all, you become the spokesperson for all the Black people that you deal with, all the Black clients, all the Black schools, all of that. And so dealing with that is you almost can't put it away or have someone else do it because they're looking at you like you're the one that should know this. And so just knowing how to navigate that can sometimes be a challenge.
I speak from my personal, local, and immediate. I do not speak for all Black women. I do not speak for all women. I speak for Kylie Luckett and her perspective and the perspectives that I have gained by talking with other people that I can then share. If anyone is asking me for anything greater than that, they need to do research. They need to do a survey because that is not for me.
Yeah, like she's saying, like, you don't never have to like speak on anything you ain't never been through or try to act like you've been through that. Like, I think that's a lot of Black people in sports, because a lot of us don't just come from the hood or anything. Like, predominantly white schools, a lot of us come from those type of schools, but then we get to college and we get around our Black teammates that are from those areas, you know, like they might act a little bit more rugged or whatever, and a lot of us feel like we gotta switch to that code to be more Black, and it's like, you don't gotta do that. You can just be yourself and let them be themselves too, and y'all can just come together. So like, that's how it is with white people too, being around predominantly white people. And it's hard to kind of stay in touch with your roots, and you're around white people all the time. Like, I know a lot of Black girls when I grew up, they're around so many white girls, and they always straighten their hair every day, which is nothing wrong with straightening your hair, but for Black girls, it ends up damaging your hair after so long, and you're doing that all the time. But they only do that because they're around white girls, and the white girls make fun of them and everything. So like, for them, just like be comfortable in your skin, Everybody has their own culture. White people don't have to try to conform to other white people. They be themselves. Like, Black people just need to learn how to be more comfortable when they're in those situations, and try to tell them, like, if a teammate wants to know, because I've had teammates talk to me about racial things like plenty of times, and it's like, I do feel like I have to educate them a little bit, because a lot of people's not going to take their time out the day to just go look up a whole history of Black people. And so if he's asking me about it, I'm not going to just blow him off and tell him like, yo, that's on you, for the most part, because it's like, he's actually trying to know. So being just kind of sensitive in what you're saying, not getting angry if they don't understand things, and just being comfortable in your own skin.
I think it's a really complex question, right? The answer is none of us, especially you in your situation, come through unscathed, right? So what we're not talking about is the fact that that stuff's traumatizing, and it will continue to be traumatizing until spaces start to look like us, right? And so the reality is decompression is super important. And another thing is you deserve what you need, period, right? So if you need to be around people that look like you, you deserve it, right? And so, for instance, in my own personal experience, what I did was I built a group that meets, right? And we eat, and we drink, and we celebrate, and we just spend time with each other, and we decompress. That's a non-pressured way of just decompressing, because otherwise, I could walk through Lawrence for the whole month and see like 5 Black people, right? Because we're busy, but also Lawrence is particularly segregated, and Black people stick to themselves, right? Unless we're seeing college students downtown, we really don't see them. And so at the end of the day, the reality is that there's no answer for me to give to you that's gonna make it better. Otherwise, I know you, and I know you're intelligent, and I know that you would have already figured it out. At the end of the day, I would say for the other people to go to trainings on microaggressions and macroaggressions. But people that are trifling don't usually enjoy being told to go to trainings because they're bugging you, right? I think that at the end of the day, you being able to speak and be heard and believed is really important. But nothing's going to take the place of you having people that look like you around in leadership, right? Because you are the secret holder, and you're also the true speaker, right, for your position. And that is just really difficult. And I'm sorry that you're experiencing that. That's just a real thing.
Yeah, I really like your hoodie, by the way.
Thank you. Hot chocolate.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really great and complicated question, because when you get a job, you would like to think you got it for yourself, like meaning you got it because you were yourself. But sometimes, I mean, I don't want to speak for everybody here, but there might have been some jobs that you got because you acted for quote unquote maybe a little bit more articulate or whatever. And the really difficult part too, especially I sympathize with your position. The really difficult part too is because as therapists up here, a part of our job is to make people feel understood and really just be their true selves. And so it would be easy just to say, if you don't feel belonged at your job, then, or if you feel like you're losing yourself, just quit.
Yeah, just quit.
But at the end of the day too, for anybody that's ever, whether it's a past relationship or like you've moved or whatever, losing yourself and who you are and not recognizing who's in the mirror is one of the scariest things ever. So I think it's one of those things too, if the job is not allowing for trainings to understand different groups more, and it's come to a point where you really are feeling like, okay, I don't know who I am anymore. Unfortunately, that might be the thing you have to do, is change jobs, careers, etc., settings, knowing and having the confidence that some place will accept the true you.
And yet capitalism, keeps us trapped oftentimes. So, okay.
So how do you think we move forward with the current political climate as it is, with DEI being torn down? Did you hear me?
Yeah, say it again so I can, give me a moment.
How do you think that we are supposed to move forward now that we're in our current political climate and, all of these programs that are supposed to help us feel more inclusive in the workplace, public places are now being destroyed?
And nobody else is hopping on this, I see. Well, I'll answer, I guess. It starts with funding. It starts with taking a risk. People with more privilege taking a risk and utilizing the skills and trainings offered by people of color, specifically Black people. I think it starts with challenging leadership and policy within, I don't know, this is run by Bert Nash, so maybe perhaps challenging Bert Nash's policy on cohort hiring when it comes to Black therapists or things like that. I don't know. Something along those lines, but starting to have braver conversations, because what I like to say is, once you know, you can't unknow. And we're watching it in the grand scheme, in the media every day. We're watching things being dismantled, so we should be building intentionally to subvert these things that are intentionally trying to destroy and devastate the communities that are already marginalized and oppressed. Does that make sense?
I also think that the people and the organizations that are about it are going to continue to be about it. If they are willing to stop, they were never about it to begin with. It was the buzzword, it was the next big thing.
Target.
Target. And so it's being unapologetic. It's no, we are still going to do this because it is the right thing to do. And being willing to take that risk of what could we lose, what's going to happen, and not being fearful. Because I do believe a lot of this is fear-mongering. And I'm going to tell you that I'm going to take away all your money, so then you do it. Okay, really? Come at me. And then if you'd like to, then maybe we'll address it then. But until then, you can rip my DEI out of my cold dead hands. Like, no, I'm not going to do that.
So all of the above, but I also would like to add the concept, and I know we need the funding and other things, resources to do that, but I also is a firm believer of the for us by us, right? It's a tool that we know how to use and we're doing it. So for us, continue to do that, continue to build what we want, right? And again, it's easier said than done because we need the resources, we need the funding, but while we are waiting for that, while we are pushing through, while we're fighting for it, while we're, working on that, what is it that we do have? We have each other. We have a small but mighty, group of professionals within our community. How do we have each other, right? right? We have family members, we have, we have something. And so start with what we have and build what we want. So.
Next question. First, thank you all so much. Really filling my spirit tonight. I work in adoption and have worked in child welfare for many years, and so I'm finally at a place where we do these things. Like, I used to work in Kansas state government. I now work for the federal government, but for the last 2 years in this job, we have walked the walk, and finally it felt so true. Like, my supervisor is a Black woman. Like, we have a very diverse staff. But like you said, this, like, I was on a call on the way over where we were told by our federal person, our overseer person, that their Doge is in the office and they're gonna look, and they're gonna see whether, like, what DEI we reported on. And we have whole programs. I mean, the disproportionality and disparities of Black and brown children in our foster care system, we're just gonna ignore that. And so anyways, so glad I was here tonight. My question is actually for personal reasons. Several of you talked about kind of growing up in spaces where there weren't other children or people that looked like you. And I'm asking this for personal, like just for my work, for adoption work, but also in my own personal family. If there's anything that did work, like my grandchildren are biracial and I want them to embrace their Blackness and be okay with it. But I want other families who adopt mixed race children or biracial children or Black children. I'd rather keep them in their own, connected to their communities, but I just want to know what would work. What's something?
For me personally, I don't think I fully embraced my true Blackness until I got to college, just because, like I said, I grew up in a predominantly white area. I went to an all-white private, like pretty much all-white private school. So for me, like, it was very hard to try and surround myself with like friends that looked like me, just because like there weren't a lot of Black girls in my area. Like, I'm from Oakland Park, Kansas. So like for me, like in college, what kind of helped me was, like I said, just surrounding myself with people that look like me. Like my best friend and my roommate, she's right there. She's honestly helped me so much, just because like we're also on the same team. So it's like, while we're in that space and like still surrounded by predominantly white people, we kind of lean on each other for the experiences, and that's what kind of helps us through. So honestly, just trying to kind of connect them with like little kids that look like them, so then they have someone to lean on, especially growing up.
I think also, I'm trying to think how to say this in a kind way, ensuring that families who are taking care of Black children are taking care of them for the right reasons. I'll just be transparent. Nothing pisses me off more than getting on social media and like, I'm this white lady and look at me do my Black daughter's hair, praise me, praise me. No, absolutely not. I am not going to praise you for doing the bare minimum of learning how to take care of your child's hair. You do not get a prize for that. And I think having those open conversations and saying those things are really important. Do I know of an exact way to like weed that out? No, but it is about the learning. My mother is white, and I fortunately had a mother who learned how to take care of my hair. She learned about Blackness. She never wanted me to feel different or anything like that. So she, from a very young age, put me in spaces and places and taught herself, put the work on herself to be better and be different. So it is rare that you hear things when it works out, but it does. But there has to be intentional work done for the right reasons.
Very similar to our teammate on the right. I felt like college is really where I got to learn more about my Blackness too, and I think growing up very privileged where we, what my parents provided for us and everything, but a lot of the time where I lived in Nebraska, it's very segregated in the sense of like West Omaha has a certain race, North Omaha has a certain race, and South Omaha has a certain race. And I think for your question, having your children or providing them opportunities where they can be, if you have to travel to certain spaces just for that, it really, I think, helps the child feel like, okay, I am not the only one, and that goes a long way. Whether it's with sports, dancing, anything, but also, I mean, I guess the simplest answer is just the educational piece on your own. But I think for me, growing up outside of certain parties my parents would have for us, because they were part of a Nigerian club, I got to meet with a lot of Nigerian children, but at school it was back to how it usually is. So I think having those groups where you're intentionally bringing your children to, where they're not the only one, I think it does make a huge difference, or it could.
I like to think, Melinda, I know you asked these questions, I would answer, thank you. So as a child that was adopted, right, I like to think about it like learning a language. I think the most effective way of learning in that situation is immersion. And so if you can immerse yourself into those cultures, and not as somebody who is studying the cultures, but who's somebody who is experiencing life alongside those cultures, because you have a child that is deeply and like inseparably connected to that culture because that is their culture, then you won't be somebody that is seen as appropriating or somebody that's utilizing white saviorism or things like that. I think it's a really good question because the disproportionality of black children that are not babies within the foster to adopt system is astonishingly disgusting. Nobody wants to adopt kids that are not babies that are black, and that's pretty wild. But we need to have these conversations because, like almost everybody else has said, it wasn't until college that I started to explore or really understand what it meant to be black. I only understood my blackness as in being different, and that's a problem. And so at the end of the day, these conversations, the education, the immersion, and having real vulnerable conversations with the child about what they're experiencing will help them to develop the language to be able to ask real questions and actually start to build with integrity their identity. So.
I just wanted to add one more thing. Colorblindness is not real and it is harmful. So speaking to that, like it can't be, oh, I don't see color. No, I need you to see my color. It is important. So that's just what I want to say.
Hey, y'all, thanks for being here. Throughout this discussion, there are some things that y'all have said that resonate with me. I'm biracial, I'm white, and I'm Native. So y'all talking about, not really understanding what it is like to explore like this part of yourself in a predominantly white space until you get somewhere else. That really resonates with me, and I do appreciate speaking to that. To kind of piggyback off of that, Lisa, you had mentioned earlier, creating spaces that are by us, for us, right? And I work in mental health care. I really try to create, spaces by Native people, for Native people. Do you find the same kind of difficulty within your communities? I guess my difficulty comes from finding Native people to get into those spaces, finding, Native professionals, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I think I'm asking something very simple, but I'm taking like a lot of words to ask it, So, I guess it's how do you, get more professionals, I guess, into the spaces. Yeah.
So I'm happy that earlier this year, it would have been last year, sorry, I was trying to think what month we're in. Actually, with Bert Nash and the school district, wrote a grant specifically on building a program to train mental health practitioners of color for schools. There was a federal grant Fortunately, we were this close from getting it. If the Department of Education still exists, we're going to apply again. But I think it's building programs like that. It is, and as part of our plan for that is how do we tap into Haskell? How are we tapping in to these communities and educating college students on that this is an option? How are we creating pathways in high school? All of our high schools have different career pathways. How are we having a pathway that is mental health service focused that we are targeting our Black and Brown Native students to go through?
So all of that, and I still go back to what do we have right now, right? So yes, we're building, but also what do we have right now? Do we have one? If we have one, that's enough, right? I think sometimes we're looking at the bigger, and it's good to look towards the bigger, but then we minimize what we already have. So start with what you have. If you have 2 people for a group, then let it be 2. Do the work really well, and the word spread, right? We talk amongst ourselves, and so we recommend each other, and that's, you know, that's what we have right now. So do what it is that we have right now.
Hi guys, thank you for being here today. What impact does systemic racism have on mental health of Black Americans, and how can we all in the health professionals and nurse, like counselors, psychologists, and coaches, work to mitigate those effects?
I feel like that is a loaded question, it's a layered question, and I would say this. So while I cannot, because it's layered, I can't speak for the whole group. I'm sure if you ask every Black person in here, you're going to get a variance of their own experiences. But to answer the question of what impact it has, it does have an impact because systemic racism, that's the question you're asking, right? Okay. It is strong. It is intentional. It is not accidental, right? It is as strong now, today, as it was in its creation. And it serves as a gatekeeper, right? And if we think about the role of a gatekeeper allows and disallows, right? And so systemic racism allows trauma to be experienced repeatedly. That's the intent. And it disallows resolution, access to resolution of that trauma. And it's on purpose. So for us to recognize that, don't downplay it, and to want to do something about it, right? We can talk all day, we can act like it doesn't exist, but we know that it does, you know. All of us do, whether we're Black or not, we know that it exists. So I guess the question is, do we want to do something about it? And it is powerful, so it's recognizing recognizing the position it holds, the purpose of it, and do we want to break that system down? We need to, but do we want to? And it's a collective effort.
I think when I think of organizations and companies and groups, there's always lots of talk about climate and culture. And when we think about that, I think we think about it in the wrong way. It's all about how you behave repeatedly and habitually. And so how we behave repeatedly and habitually needs to reflect the work of taking down systemic racism, addressing it. So if we can't sit there and ask ourselves, how does this policy, how does this work to dismantle it, then we need to refocus.
I read a study a couple years back that said that systemic racism creates inflammation in our bodies. So to answer your question, that's what happens. And it creates inflammation around our organs, so that's why we're predisposed to heart disease or things like that. That's the direct effect, right? I also think that as a mental health practitioner, it would be disingenuous for me to say, this is what I do to help my clients solve systemic racism, because that's not true. What I focus on is giving them the language to be able to articulate it and a space with me so that I can model how that conversation can go so that it can go out and teach other people that are also experiencing that. The answer is I would love to fix it. If I could go around swinging on everybody and that would fix it, I would. But unfortunately I can't. And the reality is that oftentimes if we don't know the impact, we are not looking for the symptoms, right? And so there's a lot of kids that have stomach aches all the time, and you're wondering why. And so the questions I ask is, hey, how was your interaction with your peers? Well, you know, the class said hi to everybody but didn't say hi to me. Oh, that's interesting. What's your class look like? Okay, well, I'm the only black kid in my class. This is an example that I had from our client this week. They didn't say hi to me, and I didn't really like that. But I had a substitute who came in and made them say hi to me, and that made my stomach feel better. And so that's a gateway into having conversations about it. So systemic oppression is in everything, especially systemic racism. And again, we have to have the baseline conversations all the way up to collegiate, scholarly, funded education about these things, because oftentimes the powers to be don't enjoy funding things that holds them complicit.
Hi. I took a note of my question because I won't stumble over things. I just to acknowledge the connection, the power to pass on persons of color that we are working with to a provider of persons of color is amazing. I got to do that with some of my clients when I left case management and became in the master's program of social work. And it was very grateful to be able to do that, because there's stuff that I don't. It's not that I don't understand some of it. I just understand that there's a cultural component that I cannot provide. And so it was really awesome to be able to do that. I'm wondering if you guys could speak on, I'm very conflicted in the fact that media brochures, specifically for organizations, are working towards including persons of color on their materials, but are they feeling targeted because they're being put on there because they might be the only person of color for that agency or a few for that agency? And I am conflicted about that. So could you speak to that?
I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of confused by the question.
I think she's talking about tokenism.
Yeah.
So are you asking what our thoughts are on that, or like our opinions?
Yeah.
I got it here.
So she's asking, like, if when, for instance, in the athletic department, you play soccer, but maybe on the soccer poster, she's the only one, or these two young ladies with one Caucasian person, usually in the middle, and they're on the side. And they're showing, like, look, we are diverse, and this is our new soccer team. So when we use persons of color to advertise a department or entity, what is the agency really doing behind that? Is it genuine, the proof showing, or is it an advertisement like, you come to us? For instance, maybe Lisa is used for Bert Nash, and in reality there's no other persons of color at Bert Nash to help the people who are going to come because they see Lisa's picture on the website.
If you guys are Shameless fans, it's like that episode where, what was the youngest name? Liam was always in the photos at the private school. It's a problem from my perspective. If you are putting out advertising material, whatever it is, it should be truly reflective of your population. So if we take a look at all of the players. And let's say out of 100, 50 of them are white, and 25 are black, and 25 are Hispanic. Let's be representative and have 2 white people, 1 black person, 1 Hispanic person, because that would be like a representation of it. Do we all know that it happens? Of course. We gotta intentionally have these pictures. I think as long as we are following up with the work and the support, and it's not just, here, let me put you on the cover to show these things, that it's not inherently a bad thing, but the follow-up has to be there. And it needs to be, and it's hard to tell, like, the genuine or like the purpose underlying. It's hard to read.
I can definitely say it kind of just depends on the organization. So me personally, at my private school, I was one of those people that they had in a picture, and I'm like one of the 3 black girls in our grade, and then they had an Asian girl, and they were just trying to come across as diverse, which is not representative of the population at all. So from them, it was very disingenuous. But there are some organizations that are actually like, maybe the team does represent in that way, and like they're not just putting like a black person on a poster just to seem like diverse. So I think it honestly just kind of depends on the organization.
So I would definitely agree. I think so how it could serve in a positive light is when I'm looking as a black person, I'm also looking for representation, right? And so if I see another person of color, if I see a black person, then that gets my attention. I feel like, that might be someplace that I won't be alone. I'll see another one of my person that I can do a head nod and that kind of thing too. So it is helpful to offer an invitation, but I also think, like what was said before, the work has to be done, and there should be evidence of that work being done to, okay, once I come into the space, is it prepared for me? Am I able to be successful in that place? And that's the work that should be ongoing as you're offering that invitation.
I mean, look, are we paying these people, right, to be on these posters? Because I'll be on a poster if you pay me, right? I think it's important to know that it's not black people's jobs to save the world, right? And so, like, if you put me on a poster and I need that money, I'm going to take the money, right? But it's up to the people in leadership to change the policy, right? So just let's understand that my role might not be to be like, oh, because of my principles, I'm not going to be on the cover of that. I was followed around by the photographer at Bethel College in Newton, Kansas, North Newton, pardon me, Kansas for 4 years. And I was on posters 4 years afterwards. And it was weird, right? I feel like she was hiding behind bushes to take pictures of me, right? But, I mean, every black person knows what that feels like when people are trying to take your pictures, trying to be sneaky, right? But I think that at the end of the day, it was weird when it became weird because they were not paying me for that. And they were definitely profiting off me, right? So that was the tokenism that feels weird, right? You're further marginalizing me by following me around, so I can't even be organic. I gotta like pose around the corner. So, okay, what's up, Jared? Yeah, okay, we got the picture, and keep it going. I think that at the end of the day, if you pay people, right, what they're worth to be on these, if we look at whatever budget these people are using for marketing, if they pay the people, that's a different conversation than should I be on that because of the policies of the institutions or whatever we're talking about, right? I think it's a complex question, but I hope that makes sense.
I think we have time for one last question.
All right, thank you all for your insights. One last question. Appreciate your vulnerability and hope you can be vulnerable with this one. I think each of you spoke about like the stigma in maybe reaching out, maybe going to therapy and help seeking. Wondering what you would say to your younger self before you sought help, or what you would say to someone who's considering going to therapy.
I want to take time. I want to take a minute to collect my thoughts, but it's a good question.
My younger stuff was in therapy, so I would say that compatibility with your mental health professional is super important, right? Those are things that oftentimes my clients never know, right? I have so many clients that are older because they went to one clinician that was terrible, and they did not mesh, they did not build rapport with them or anything like that. And oftentimes, especially black men, they were like, I'm never doing that again. Until things get so bad that they're like, oh, I need to go talk to somebody, right? And so what I would say is, again, like I was talking about before, you deserve what you need. And so if it doesn't feel like a good fit, please trust your instinct instead of gaslighting yourself into being like, no, I need help regardless of who it's from, because that is not accurate. Some therapy does more harm than good, for real.
For the second part, I would say for clients now, I mean, it's free, so take advantage of it. But then for my old self, I would say, regardless of the cost, it's going to make you better when you become an adult to talk these things out, not just hold it in. And it will protect you in some ways from maybe some relationships you had as an adult that you did not need to give as much time or energy towards them as you did, or also seek out the ones that really are there for you and appreciate who you are, not so much catering to what idea they have of you. So that's probably what I would have told my younger self.
I would have told myself to listen, actually listen to the things that's being said and not try to react or try to have a response to what your therapist is saying or what she's trying to help you with, and actually let your therapist help you and not try to find your own ways, even though, like, you listening to her, like when you go to therapy, like when I first started going, like I was listening to her, but I was still trying to find like my way and her way together. But she's a therapist, so she really knows the best way, and that's why I went to go talk to her. So doing that, and don't look into the future too much. Just take my day by day and do what you do. Do what you set out to do each day. Don't think about what you're supposed to do 3 days from now, because it'll get there. Of course, you got to plan for it and do all that, but just taking one step at a time, because that's what's something that really I was struggling with a lot, was just trying to see too far ahead of what my life is going to look like in the future. And with mental health, that's just something that just constantly just rolled into my head all the time. And once I figured out that when you enjoy your day, it feels good to go into the next day. When you enjoy that day, it's going to feel good to go into that day. But when you looking to enjoy Friday, you're probably not going to enjoy Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So just taking it day by day and just little steps at a time.
Yeah, I love that. I think that for me, it would be that therapy is not a prize or a race to be won. I did not need to be the gold star of something I was trying to do. Like, I'm gonna be the best in therapy. Like, I wanted to like beat or outsmart therapy. Like and instead of just truly taking part and learning and growing. It wasn't something I was getting a score for. And I think I was probably less vulnerable and less open because I was trying to kind of put on airs. But that also could have been in part because my therapist was a very old white woman as a child, and we didn't have a connection. And I just want to extend what Daniel was saying, the idea of look down at your feet and be where your feet are. Because if your feet are here and you're focusing on here, then you're able to be here, and you're not on Tuesday, you're not on Friday, you're not in other spaces. You can truly just be present. So that's a practice that I take, and when I'm feeling overwhelmed or things are going on, I just look down and this is where I'm at, and this is where I should be at.
So I'll take the back end first. What I would tell my younger self is to work through the stigma and not just stop. Not to get discouraged, but keep on going, keep on searching, keep on wanting, and keep on and to know that I deserve that. To tell others, to encourage others is, I think, the same thing, is to, it's possible to get through the stigma. It is possible to get help. And it's a process too, like you may have the first couple of therapists, or first couple of, if it's med service that you need, the first couple of meds may not work for you, but it doesn't mean that you cannot find something that works for you. It'll take some work, but it's possible to find the right match for you in terms of therapy, med services, or any other support that you may need.
So I think I would have told my younger self, by seeking out like mental health services, it doesn't mean that there's something wrong with me, or there's something wrong with me mentally. Because I feel like if I would have maybe seen a therapist, like in my middle school and high school years, I feel like my mental health and like my experiences would have been so much better, because I think at that time, like I was experiencing so much insecurity and like self-hate, just because, once again, I was surrounded by people that didn't look like me, and so I constantly think like, is there something wrong with me? Or like why do I feel so different from my peers? So I feel like I would have just told my younger self, like, there's nothing wrong with you, like just talking out like those feelings and getting out those feelings is only going to benefit you.
And last thing I want to say is, like, y'all, I'm not perfect. Like, I know we up here on this panel and we talking about all this stuff, but like I still struggle with this every single day. Like, I still have to remind myself to do the things I'm doing to make myself better. And me coming up here to talk about it helps me go on to my next day and be like, okay, I was talking about that yesterday, well, let me do it again today. You know what I'm saying? So like, when you got mental health and you're going through stuff, like, it's not just gonna get fixed like that. And it might not get fixed for years, you know what I'm saying? But as long as you just keep trying and keep trying to be better, don't let yourself, well, I ain't gonna say don't let yourself, because you might fall into a hole, but try, yeah, it's part of the process of going through depression, or not even being depressed, just going through life. Just keep going and knowing that you're not perfect. Everybody not perfect, and be able to tell people you're not perfect and not feel like you're a perfect person because you over here telling somebody something that they looking to seek information from. It's just something that they getting from you that you experience, you know? So, yeah.
It doesn't have to be bad to get better. Your mental health does not have to be bad to get better.
Okay, last thing, sorry, I remember something. One, you don't have, sometimes the best time to start therapy is when you're not ready. Two, kind of like someone else mentioned, if you don't feel that connection with a therapist, we don't get offended if you do want to meet with someone else. I think as a client you think we do, but trust me, we don't. We just want to make sure you're getting the best help. Three, therapy is not linear. Oftentimes it comes like this, sometimes it's like this, sometimes it's like that. And then, I forgot my last one, but it's going to hit me when we're done. Oh, it's okay to go to therapy for good things too. That was my last thing.
Yeah.
Doesn't always have to be something bad.
You don't gotta complain in therapy all the time. Like, you can tell your therapist when something good is going on in your life. You ain't gotta go there just to complain all the time.
Absolutely. Well, thank you all so much for your vulnerability.
Thank you, panelists, for being here tonight and sharing with us your personal and professional experience. We're really honored that you're here. This is the best attendance we've had, and so it shows us how important this topic was. We certainly want to thank our sponsor tonight, Ameritrust Credit Union, and they've been a long-time partner with us in this work. As Robin has said, we are committed to this work and we're committed to be a partner as we move forward to helping continue the growth and improvement of our community and make it a more safe and inclusive place. If you're interested in getting more involved and learning more, somebody mentioned mental health first aid. Certainly you can take that here at KU. We also offer it through Bert Nash, and you just find it on our website and come for a tour if you'd like to learn more and how to become more involved. So thank you all again. Really wonderful panel. Thank you so very much. Another hand for them, please.